Hopefully good things. Hey everybody, good evening. Ooh, I'm watching the camera up there. That's really weird. I can see me. I hope you're all having a good evening. I just wanted to give you a quick update on the class schedule because we lost a Sunday in there and I hadn't prepared for it proactively, so we're accounting for it reactively. So what we're going to do is tonight we're gonna do what we would have done on Sunday. We're gonna do Ezra chapters 4 through no, not Ezra, Esther. Esther chapters 4 through 6. And then on Sunday, we're going to finish the book. I'm going to teach that class. Andy's recovering from shoulder surgery. And I kind of requested, since I already, taught 2/3 of the book, could I go ahead and finish it out? Then we're going to finish out the book of Ezra next Wednesday. Andy's going to teach that. I'm going to be out of town. And then what we're going to do is we're going to compress the book of Nehemiah down from 3 lessons to 2. Cut the book in half, basically. And then give the final book of prophecy, whichever that is. I have it written down. We're going to give that its own lesson instead of it sharing with a chunk of Nehemiah. Nope, that's my quarter 1 stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, big gaps of time in there, yeah. We chatted about that a little bit last time because I was wondering about the timeline. But then fortunately reading it out loud to you all, we caught some things that I didn't catch when reading it to myself. But yeah, there's a big gap of time from the whole thing with Vashti to the last thing we saw with Haman in Ezra chapter 3. Malachi, by the way, is going to be the very last lesson. So that'll be on June 29th. Okay. So before we go any farther, let's go to God in prayer. Our God, we're very grateful for you. We're very grateful for your blessings. We ask that your love and your care and your oversight is just in so many places tonight. There's so many places, not only in our country, but throughout the world that are struggling, that are facing challenges. And we just hope that you'll keep people safe. We pray for your love and your protection. Right here in class here together, we hope you'll be with us as we study this word. We hope you'll help open our hearts, help us be humble and meditative in what we're reading, and help it open our hearts, help it turn our hearts to be more like you. We pray that you'll be with everyone who's in a class tonight, whether they're facilitating that class or they're a participant. Just help everyone come to a closer understanding of you. And we pray these things in your Son's holy name. Amen. All right, so Esther chapter 4. Now, when last we left, Esther had become queen after the previous queen, Vashti, and Xerxes had a falling out. In addition to Esther becoming queen, we met her uncle Mordecai. And we saw that Mordecai uncovered a plot against the king's life, and thereby maybe saved the king's life by telling them about this. And then we also met Haman, this man that the king elevates to a high position, and we see that power go to his head, how much he enjoys people bowing to him, giving obeisance. And when he sees that Mordecai doesn't do that, he becomes sullen, he becomes angry, he becomes vindictive. and decides that, well, since this guy wronged me, I'm going to take it out on all of his people. He presents the case to King Xerxes. Hey, these people, they're weird, they're outsiders, they don't do things the way we do. Maybe we should just kill them all. And the king agrees and issues an edict that on a certain day of a certain month, all of these Jews living in his empire are going to be exterminated. All right? Reminder of our setting, we are in the Persian Empire. We're in the days of Xerxes I. We are after the rebuilding of the temple, but the city of Jerusalem hasn't been rebuilt yet. Okay? So let's hop in and read together Esther 4 through 6. As usual, I'm in the Christian Standard Bible. When Mordecai learned all that had occurred, this would be finding out that the Jews were facing genocide, he tore his clothes, put on sackcloth and ashes, went into the middle of the city and cried loudly and bitterly. He went only as far as the king's gate, since the law prohibited anyone wearing sackcloth from entering the king's gate. There was great mourning among the Jewish people in every province where the king's command and edict reached. They fasted, wept, and lamented, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes. Esther's female servants and her eunuchs came and reported the news to her, and the queen was overcome with fear. She sent clothes to Mordecai to wear, so that he would take off his sackcloth, but he did not accept them. Esther summoned Hathach, one of the king's eunuchs who attended her, and dispatched him to Mordecai to learn what he was doing and why. So Hathach went out to Mordecai in the city square in front of the king's gate. Mordecai told him everything that had happened, as well as the exact amount of money Haman had promised to pay the royal treasury for the slaughter of the Jews. Oh yeah, I forgot that detail in our recap. Here's why they're terrible people. Oh, and also a bribe. Mordecai also gave him a copy of the written decree issued in Susa ordering the destruction, so that Hathach might show it to Esther, explain it to her, and command her to approach the king, implore his favor, and plead with him personally for her people. Hathach came and repeated Mordecai's response to Esther. Esther spoke to Hathach and commanded him to tell Mordecai, all the royal officials and the people of the royal provinces know that one law applies to every man or woman who approaches the king in the inner courtyard and who has not been summoned, the death penalty, unless the king extends the gold scepter, allowing that person to live. I have not been summoned to appear before the king for the last 30 days. Esther's response was reported to Mordecai. Mordecai told the messenger to reply to Esther, don't think that you will escape the fate of all the Jews because you are in the king's palace. If you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will come to the Jewish people from another place, but you and your father's family will be destroyed. Who knows? Perhaps you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. Esther sent the reply to Mordecai, go and assemble all the Jews who can be found in Susa and fast for me. Don't eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my female servants will do the same. After that, I will go to the king, even if it is against the law. If I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went and did everything Esther had commanded him. On the 3rd day, chapter 5, Esther dressed in her royal clothing and stood in the inner courtyard of the palace facing it. The king was sitting on his royal throne in the royal courtroom facing the entrance. As soon as the king saw Queen Esther standing in the courtyard, she gained favor with him. The king extended the gold scepter in his hand toward Esther, and she approached and touched the tip of the scepter. "What is it, Queen Esther?" The king asked her. "Whatever you want, even to half the kingdom will be given to you." "If it pleases the king," Esther replied, "may the king and Haman come today to the banquet I prepared for them." The king said, "Hurry and get Haman so we can do as Esther has requested." So the king and Haman went to the banquet Esther had prepared. While drinking the wine, the king asked Esther, "Whatever you ask will be given to you. Whatever you want, even to half the kingdom, will be done." Esther answered, "This is my petition and my request. If I have found favor in the eyes of the king, and if it pleases the king to grant my petition and perform my request, may the king and Haman come to the banquet I will prepare for them. Tomorrow I will do what the king has asked." That day Haman left full of joy and in good spirits. But when Haman saw Mordecai at the king's gate, and Mordecai didn't rise or tremble in fear at his in his presence, Haman was filled with rage toward Mordecai. Yet Haman controlled himself and went home. He sent for his friends and his wife Zeresh to join him. Then Haman described for them his glorious wealth and his many sons. He told them how the king had honored him and promoted him in rank over the other officials and the royal staff. "What's more," Haman added, "Queen Esther invited no one but me to join the king at the banquet she had prepared. I'm invited again tomorrow to join her with the king. Still, none of this satisfies me, since I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate all the time." His wife Zeresh and all his friends told him, "Have them build a gallows 70 feet tall. Ask the king in the morning to hang Mordecai on it. Then go to the banquet with the king and enjoy yourself." The advice pleased Haman, so he had the gallows constructed. That night, sleep escaped the king. So the king ordered the book of recording daily events to be brought and read to the king. They found the written report of how Mordecai had informed on Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's eunuchs who guarded the entrance, when they had planned to assassinate King Xerxes. The king inquired, "What honor and special recognition has been given to Mordecai for this act?" The king's personal attendants replied, "Nothing has been done for him." The king asked, "Who's in the court?" Now, Haman was just entering the outer court of the palace to ask the king to hang Mordecai on the gallows he had prepared for him. The king's attendants answered him, "Haman is there, standing in the court." "Have him enter," the king ordered. Haman entered, and the king asked him, "What should be done for a man the king wants to honor?" Haman thought to himself, "Who is it the king would want to honor more than me?" So Haman told the king, "For the man the king wants to honor, have them bring a royal garment that the king himself has worn, and a horse the king himself has ridden, which has a royal crown on its head. Put the garments and the horse under the charge of one of the king's most noble officials. Have them clothe the man the king wants to honor, parade him on horse through the city square, and call out before him, 'This is what is done for the man the king wants to honor.'" Yeah, I hear some of you already giggling, like those of you who've read ahead. The king told Haman, "Hurry and do just as you propose. Take a garment and a horse for Mordecai the Jew, who is sitting at the king's gate. Do not leave anything you have suggested." So Haman took the garment and the horse. He clothed Mordecai and paraded him through the city square, calling out before him, "This is what is done for the man the king wants to honor." Then Mordecai returned to the king's gate, but Haman hurried off for home, mournful and with his head covered. Haman told his wife, Zeresh, and all his friends everything that had happened. His advisors and his wife Zeresh said to him, since Mordecai is Jewish and you have begun to fall before him, you won't overcome him because your downfall is certain. While they were still speaking with him, the king's eunuchs arrived and rushed Haman to the banquet Esther had prepared. To be continued. Will Haman back down? What's going to happen at the banquet? Will Mordecai survive all this? We're not going to talk about that till Sunday. You'll have to read ahead if you want to know. Okay, so like usual, we're just going to back up and run through the events a little bit here. Talk about what you noticed, what questions you might have, connections you might have made with some other passages or other characters in the Bible, and just what is coming out to you as important as we read all of this. So let's start back in chapter 4 when Mordecai and Esther have their appeal. What did you notice back there? Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Well, I know Jesus Christ, he said, I will clothe you finer than Solomon, and all his glory as the lilies of the field, and I know they're very beautiful. And Mordecai, very wise, like Solomon, they say. And Esther, there's a beauty inside and an adornment of the Holy Spirit that surrounds the power of witnesses.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm interested in Vashti and Esther in that they both kind of defy, and yet Esther is foreshadowing the Christ to come, in that she's willing to give her life to save the people. And Mordecai also tells about salvation coming, and of course men like Samson that who would help save the people of God. And then our Savior Jesus finally comes. He says, say to daughter of Zion, your king comes to you, humble and gentle, mounted on a colt, mounted on a donkey, even has a colt.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm not going to be able to recap all the things you said there, but what we just talked about is he made this connection here between Esther and her showing up here as kind of a Messiah figure, and the wisdom that she and Mordecai show in this entire process. And he also did a contrast there with Vashti. Now, we talked about Vashti last time we were together, and both Vashti and Esther, they both in their own way defy the king a little bit. Vashti's was to protect herself, to protect her pride. Again, I'm going to be very clear here. The king's request of Vashti was out of line. But I still think we're supposed to see this little bit of contrast here. Vashti was protecting herself. Esther's defiance is to protect others. And she's careful about it. And we'll get to that in just a second. Thank you, sir. What else do you see here? Oh, go ahead, Jordan.
One of the things we talked about last week was how little we see God directly mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
But in this one, we see the fast that Esther asked them to do. And this is echoing a pattern we've seen time and time again with God's people. When there was oppression, they would cry out to God for healing. And even though it's not saying they cried out to God, God delivered them, we see that faith in how they are acting. They're not just fasting for no reason. They understand that they're reaching out to their Lord and God.
Mm-hmm. And because of that, Jordan, so Jordan was talking about how like this fast here invokes God's presence into the story. This would be a pattern we see with God's people, or even sometimes not God's people. seeking forgiveness or seeking deliverance, that they would fast. And here, Esther asks that the people fast on her behalf and that she and her servants are going to fast as well. I imagine what this conversation with her Persian servants looked like. Like, we're not going to eat or drink anything for 3 days. Stick with me here. But I'm the queen. You're going to do what I say. But they are invoking God by doing this. And what we see is the pattern of the judges start to repeat here a little bit. An oppressor rises up. Haman, in this case, and Xerxes to some extent, because he has to put his approval on this whole thing. And now we have God's people coming together, fasting, calling out to God, and we're going to have a deliverer rise up because of this. Go ahead, John. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has been for years. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, this message goes far and wide. And I think Mordecai's response here is interesting. He puts on sackcloth and he goes out and he mourns loudly about this. But where? In public. He's not doing this like quietly in the closet of his home. He sees this great oppression, injustice, genocide coming towards him and his people. And he cries out publicly. He mourns publicly about it. And when it talks about the other provinces, I imagine we're supposed to see them doing the same. This public outcry against this massive injustice that's coming. And then, out of all the Jews in the land, what'd you say, 127 provinces? I'll take you at your word on that. 127 provinces worth of people. Yeah. Oh, was it? Oh, you're right. Okay. And that was last week. I can't be expected to remember what we studied last week. Who's the one Jew who knows nothing about this? Yeah. I heard someone over here whisper it. Esther. Esther doesn't know about it. And of course, why would she? She wasn't privy to that conversation between Haman and Xerxes. And then it's not like Xerxes is calling her in for discussions on matters of state. She hasn't been in a public viewing with Xerxes for over a month, for at least a month, it sounds like. She doesn't know about this. This is news to her. So she gets in this back and forth by proxy. I keep forgetting that they're talking by messenger in this. This unit going back and forth between them, like passing notes. And because, like, this poor guy has to remember word for word what's going on back and forth here. But he's trained for this, so I'm sure he did an amazing job. And we have Mordecai sharing with Esther through this messenger. This is what's happening. This is what's going to happen to our people. Can you do something about this? And Esther going, I don't know. Because if you break in on the king's discussions when he doesn't want you there, he'll just kill you. And he hasn't handed a golden scepter to me in a long time. So I don't know. And then we have what's probably the most famous passage out of Esther. Don't think you will escape the fate of all the Jews because you are in the king's palace. If you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will come to the Jewish people from another place, but you and your father's family will be destroyed. Who knows? Perhaps you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. Wow. Wow. Yeah. First, we have Mordecai's faith. We're going to be delivered one way or another. God will deliver us. Again, he doesn't name God here, but where his faith is evident. We will be delivered. If you are not the figure who's supposed to deliver us, someone else will be. And yeah, go ahead.
Well, you know, as a foreign or pagan king, Jesus talks about those who would seat themselves in Moses' seat.
Mm-hmm.
And in an effort to as a rule. And those rules, Jesus with the Pharisees, that he challenged some of their perceptions of how they interpret or they speak. And Esther has a rule against her that she is not allowed to talk and that she would need permission.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus with the Samaritan woman, that Jesus was even talking with the woman. And of course, she shared the gospel message with her whole town. And the woman whose blood was staunch, that Jesus specifically called her before the gathering throng, the congregation, and bade her testify of his good works that he healed her.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, with trembling, she came forth to share the salvation that she had received in Jesus and spoke before the church. And Esther, in a role where perhaps she silenced, but bravely, you know, sometimes in even our culture today, if we're challenged not to share Jesus Christ in the workplace, or of course, we're given that great commission to share his love and forgiveness and eternal life in him with everyone. And I know that includes our mothers, sisters, aunts, and nieces and daughters. And I find that you know, sometimes Paul might say there is no male comforter. Jesus, he shares with us that the image of God is as such, and Jesus wanted to gather like mother hen in that aspect of mothering in him. And so Esther here, a heroine.
Yeah.
And I think that to stand up for your people and to be willing to, give your life in order to do so, to speak when people tell you not to. And even if there be, those in Moses' seat, as if to say, you can't do that, or you're not allowed to talk, or, you can't have a role within the kingly court to share the message of truth and salvation.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, God's providence here gives Esther the voice she needs to do what she needs to do. And just as we talked about, like, there are examples of people who would traditionally be voiceless in other places in the Bible, particularly in Jesus' ministry, who are given voice through Christ. Here, Esther listens to Mordecai's reply, and you see the resolve then that she has in the very next verse. Like, first, she's not sure about this. Mordecai says these things to her. God's going to deliver the people either way. If not through you, then someone else. But who knows? Oh, and we could do an essay about those two words right there, couldn't we? And who knows? Maybe that's why you're here. And she immediately sends the messenger back and says, fast for me for 3 days. And after 3 days, I'm going to approach the king whether he summons me or not. And if I die, I die. There's another theme in here. If you were in a recent Bible study with me, a couple of you guys were, you're going to hear a rerun of a comment I made. Because it was on my mind because of this. There's this theme that we see through the book of Esther. Because God doesn't say to Mordecai, go and tell Esther. God doesn't send a prophet to Esther and say, the will of the Lord is that you will do this. God doesn't directly speak to Esther. We can see God in the details. Oh, can we see God in the details? Esther being in the right place at the right time. Mordecai being in the right place at the right time. The king just so happening to open the book of records to like this specific event. We can see God in the details. But for the big swings, he lets his people do the work. You see, they have faith in God, but he also has faith in them. God put Esther in the right place at the right time. He has faith in her that she will follow through. God put Mordecai in the right place at the right time, having faith in him that Mordecai would follow through. Sometimes God doesn't say to one specific person, do this or do that. But we have a God who believes in us, who has faith in us, who has confidence that we are capable of doing the right thing. Go ahead, John.
Well, you notice how Esther handled this very well. She doesn't just come out and face the king with her application.
Mm-hmm.
She decides on these 2 meals. This will get the king out of his king's room and take Haman out of his place wherever he spends his time. And they will be in her house.
Yeah.
She'll have them by herself.
Yeah, you're right, John. So we see this cool thing then. Now we can move on into chapter 5. Esther goes and approaches the king, right? And John's right. She's careful. She's measured about it. And it starts all the way in verse 1. Instead of approaching the king directly at first, she's giving him the chance to initiate the conversation. She's giving him the chance to help her out. She sits out in the inner courtyard, and she's just facing where the king is going to be. The king sees her, and she has favor in his eyes. That's another one of those providential things that we see time and again in the Bible. I mean, think back to Joseph. How many times did Joseph find favor in somebody's eyes, right? Daniel finding favor in people's eyes who otherwise maybe wouldn't. Esther finds favor in the king's eyes. It's usually one of those little like keywords there that should make us think providentially. And he sees Queen Esther, and then he does the thing. He extends the scepter, she touches it, and now she is allowed to talk. But John's right. She doesn't plead her case right then and there. First, she invites the king and Haman to a feast. And he's like, yeah, grab Haman, let's go. And then I don't know if we're supposed to see a little bit of a parallel of chapter 1 here, but while drinking the wine, the king asked Esther, like, what was the king doing when he made his request to Vashti the first time? He was drinking the wine. In fact, what does it say? Like he felt merry with wine or something like that. So maybe a bit more than with Esther here, right? But instead of making a demand of her, what does he say? Twice in this chapter, he says, I'll give you what you want. Even as half the kingdom. Man, this guy's got it bad. Give you half the kingdom. And she then says, well, if it pleases you, I'd like you and Haman to come to another banquet tomorrow. And then I'll tell you what I want. Then I'll tell you what I want. And John's right. She's getting the king and Haman away from the larger court, away from the courtiers, away from all the advisors, away from all the people that could trigger a pride reaction because I'm in front of them. She's getting them onto her turf. And then she's going to do the thing, which will be next time. So we got to put a pin in that. Got to put a pin in that. And Haman's feeling pretty good about himself, except Mordecai, right? Oh, that guy. Again, there's that fragile ego, that fragile pride that we saw in Xerxes in chapter 1. We got introduced with Haman, and it's coming back again. Everything's coming up roses for Haman, except this one dude. This one guy won't bow to me. Or rise for me. Yeah, it's rise. How dare he? How dare he not show me all of the respect I'm so obviously owed because I'm so amazing and I'm in this great position. And who cares if his religion forbids it? I want him to do things my way. And if he doesn't, nothing's meaningful. I mean, the guy basically does a tweet storm here. He calls his family and his friends together. I mean, he basically hopped onto the social media of the ancient times. He just grabbing a bunch of people and bringing them over and says, look how wealthy I am. I am so wealthy. I am so incredibly wealthy. Everyone says I am so wealthy. And on top of that, I've got a lot of kids. I mean, that's pretty cool, right? I've got so many kids. They're just amazing. And the king has honored me. I mean, the king just keeps saying how great I am. I mean, I'm just like this with the king, y'all. I'm amazing. And then the queen is inviting me to this banquet that only the king's going to be at. I mean, how amazing is that? You all think I'm great, right? Right? Oh, Mordecai doesn't, and that ruins my day. And then in the theme of perfectly reasonable solutions to problems that we've seen in this book. Yeah, go ahead, Scott. No, going up saying, oh, look, I'm a god. Oh, that one. Uh-huh. Yeah. You know, I thought about Herod, but not with that thing, but with the whole, like, I'll give you anything. He ends up landing on both sides of the story. Out of control either way. But yeah, okay, so yeah, that's an interesting connection there with Herod. That one guy I just want to get rid of. And they're all like, okay, cool, hang him. Good, Jordan.
I see some parallels with this particular story about the gallows being
Okay.
with Ahab at the time of Naboth's.
Okay, so Ahab. Yeah, gotcha.
Brown man. One thing gets him. And then he goes to his wife. We know what Jezebel does.
Yeah.
That's at the end of that story. That's one of Ahab's greatest moments, actually, when he repents in sackcloth.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see what happens with Haman.
Yeah, I was going to say, at least with Zeresh, she blinks first when it comes to the whole ego thing, and perhaps wisely. But yeah, so Jordan was making a parallel with what we're seeing here with Haman, and then Ahab in Naboth's vineyard. I have all these things that I want, but this one guy won't give me his vineyard. What should I do about it? I want to go pout and whine to others about it, and my wife tells me, well, why don't you just off the guy and take it? And that's kind of the solution here. The friends and Zeresh say to him, okay, just hang him and be done with it. I mean, he's going to get, the other Jews are going to get exterminated later, sure, but like, this guy now. And he's like, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's get these built. And then overnight, I mean, I don't know what the structural integrity of these gallows were, but they must be able to do the job. Basically, overnight, these 70-foot tall gallows get built. Because this advice pleased Haman, so he had the gallows constructed. That night, sleep escaped the king. And then we see Haman is there in the wee hours of the morning, right? Because Haman was entering the outer court of the palace to ask the king to hang Mordecai on the gallows he had prepared. These, like, why was Haman there in the wee hours of the morning while the king couldn't sleep? In order to, he was there because he was just so eager with anticipation to shed blood. He was so excited he couldn't sleep either. And he was out there, the gallows were built, and he was ready to ask the king, can you kill this guy? And that's where this is where you can't say the Bible doesn't sometimes have a sense of humor. Because at this point, it's hard, y'all, it was hard to read this out loud with anything like that resembled a straight face. Because this goes into straight out comedy almost. So talk to me about chapter 6. The king's up all night. What'd you notice in there? Yeah, go ahead.
I can't let escape the correlation between people of God having a law against them to be destroyed. The Jews in World War II, Nazis trying to destroy them. Jesus talks about persecution. There is the Voices of the Martyrs, which is a free magazine, internet site, VOM. They will send you, they don't ask for money. Will share with you persecuted Christians across the world in this day and age. And there's even that within our peoples, and where one people is trying to destroy that particular group, especially amongst us Christians, people of faith.
Yeah, we as a people, like, God does promise to protect his people. Now, we also can't be presumptive when reading that or understanding that, because if all the Jews in Persia had gotten wiped out, would the Jews have survived? Yeah, because there were already those who had returned from exile. Still, Mordecai has this faith. It's not going to happen. And he holds on to that. And we as God's people can hold on to that faith. But that doesn't mean that I may not face death or anything like that. But the church will endure. Go ahead, John.
Well, let's remember that God is in the stage yet of bringing his people to the time of Christ coming to be in,
Mm-hmm.
doing his part on the earth.
Yeah.
then there'll be less time when he will be on the earth, and he will be teaching, and he will be getting a following. But after he leaves the earth, there is going to be a lot of disbelief again. It's like today, there are many different types of churches out there, shall we say.
Yeah.
They think they're right.
Disbelief has always been and will always be a challenge. And that doesn't change God being there. And so we see this cool thing here where the king just so happens, for his bedtime story, to read from this account where Mordecai saved his life. And he says, how's this guy been honored? And the aide says, he hasn't been. We kind of overlooked that. And then this hilarious exchange happens. This ironic justice happens where the king calls in Haman. He's like, hey, what if I want to honor someone really big? And Haman's all like, oh, it's got to be me. I mean, who else is he going to honor? I don't know. Me. Only me. And he's like, make this guy look like a king. Have someone proclaim before him that he's honored by the king. Throw a parade for the guy. I want a parade, Haman says. And the king looks at him and says, great, do all that for Mordecai. And then, man, it's even Haman himself who's walking in front of Mordecai, proclaiming that this man's honored by the king. I can't imagine that was the most enthusiastic shout of the week. Go ahead, Jordan. Thanks for waiting. Hmm.
We see that happen here. Haman had the view that he was the most honored. In his pride and his arrogance, he couldn't conceive of anybody else being in that position.
Yeah.
So this is definitely the first hammer stroke knocking him down for this high place.
Yeah, so Jordan just invoked the parable of like the dinner table. And I don't think yeah. And Jesus says, don't, actually it's not so much a parable as Jesus just giving advice, a truism. Don't set yourself in the highest place, lest someone comes along who's a higher position than you and comes and takes that seat. Haman defaulted himself here to the highest place. I'm the most important person here. I've got to be the one to get the honor. And then someone else got it. And I want us to just leave off with the end there. At the end of this, Haman goes back to his wife and his friends. He gripes about Mordecai again. Last time he was with them, they said, well, why don't you just kill the dude? This time, the advice is different. This guy's a Jew. You're persecuting the Jewish people. You've already begun to fall. Maybe it's time to lay off. And if we want to talk about connections, I couldn't help but hear Pilate's wife in the back of my head. Have nothing to do with this man. Have nothing to do with this. Next time we'll see what comes of that. But obviously, these friends, obviously Zeresh, have heard stories of the Jews, have heard stories of things not going well for people who tried to destroy them. And they're telling Haman to back off. All right. That's basically time for tonight. I hope you all have a really good evening. Thank you for your participation and everything. And I hope you all have a safe drive home. We'll see you on Sunday and finish this up.